Good evening and welcome to the Planning Consultation Committee this evening, the 12th of May. Members of the public are advised the meeting will be live streamed and recorded, and the live stream recording will be made publicly available on YouTube and Council's website. Thank you. Just do an acknowledgement of country. Nillumbik Shire Council respectfully acknowledge and recognise the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung as the traditional owner of the land on which Nillumbik is located. We pay tribute to all First Peoples living in Nillumbik Shire, give respect to elders past, present and emerging, and extend this respect to all First People. We acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded. As all councillors are present for the meeting, there are no apologies. And are there any councillors who would wish to disclose a conflict of interest this evening? No. Thank you. We'll go to confirming the minutes. Do I have a mover and confirmer of the minutes for Tuesday the 14th of April?
Yes, Mayor, may I move the minutes per the paper?
Thank you, Councillor Cope. And a seconder?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Brooker. Do we speak 2 minutes? No. No. Put motion to a vote. Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried. We will move to the officers' reports tonight. So thank you so much for the members of the public coming to speak to us this evening. We appreciate your time. Just a note before we get started that you will have 3 minutes to speak, and for consistency and fairness I will pipe in at the 3-minute mark. So please watch the clock on the screen. Thank you very much. So the officer report is naming proposal for the reserve in John Street, Eltham, and we have one person registered to speak to this item. Please come up, Jim Connor.
Thank you very much, councillors, for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm speaking in my role as President of the Eltham District Historical Society. Gordon Ford was a conservationist and a pioneer of natural-style landscaping. He came to Eltham in 1948 and bought a block of land in Pitt Street, in John Street, which extended through to Pitt Street in Eltham. Early on, he actually worked with Alistair Knox on construction of the mud brick boost house, amongst others. At the same time, with the help of friends including artist Clifton Pugh, he progressively built his own house fulling, utilising a variety of second-hand materials, and that is in John Street. But his main focus, which became his lifelong occupation, was garden landscaping. Inspired by Edna Walling and Ella Stones, he sought to reflect the bush settings of rural Victoria where he had grown up in. Commissions included Monash University and countless industrial sites, which is surprising. Many people don't realise that he actually worked on industrial sites as well. But designing for the archetypical quarter-acre block gave him the most satisfaction. He had a huge impact on the look of gardens in Australia from the 1950s, creating seemingly natural bush environments by carefully integrating Indigenous and exotic plantings. He was also noted for his landscaping design work in the local Eltham area, including within the Eltham Cemetery grounds and at Alistair Knox Park. In terms of the cemetery, he really set a profile as to how to present a very special place. Gordon Ford has been described as a man who spoke with his hands. He created beauty out of nature's most basic elements: earth, stone, water and vegetation. The Eltham District Historical Society considers it appropriate for the public land at the eastern end of John Street to be named to commemorate the long history and active contributions of Gordon Ford. It is a logical name for this reserve, so close to where Gordon lived for so many years, and using the name of a significant person in the developmental history of Eltham is consistent with the naming of other reserves and parks, such as Alistair Knox Park, Alan Marshall Reserve, Walter Withers Reserve, McMahon Ball Paddock, Fabro Fields, Pauline Toner Butterfly Reserve and Arthur Bird Reserve. We support the use of the title Gordon Ford Reserve for this land as a permanent recognition of his extensive contribution to creating and encouraging the seemingly natural bush environments, and consider this reserve will assist the preserving of the memory of Gordon Craig Ford. Thank you.
Does anyone have a question for Jim? No, thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
I have a mover for the recommendation?
Yes, Chair, I'd like to move the motion as per the papers. I'd just like to recognise that in dot point 5, it is actually attachment 3, not attachment 4, as it was in the papers that went out. There's just a typo that's been corrected. So if we just make that change.
Thank you very much. And a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Joy. Councillor Demerick, would you like to speak?
Just briefly, again, as Jim so eloquently told the story of Gordon Ford and his the significant amount of work he's done in the local area and across Australia more widely. And again, with this reserve being so close to his home of many, many years, and of note, this has been driven by the locals in and around that area, and I think it's very telling that we've got 81 submissions and 79 of them are in full support, and the 2 that aren't is kind of very, very vague and for very general reasons. So overwhelming community support, overwhelming local support. I thank Barry Pearce for bringing this to our attention again, and again, it's been through his determination and the constancy that I think this has got up. But again, he's gone around, surveyed everyone who lives near it, and made sure that it is really a community-driven piece. So, and again, thanks to Jim and the Eltham Historical Society for their support of this as well. And again, I think it makes a lot of sense. So we look forward to moving forward with this to the next step in the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Demerick. Councillor Joy, would you like to speak? No. Would any other councillors like to speak? Fantastic. I'll put this to a vote. All those in favour? Yes, carried. Unanimously. Thank you. So we'll go to the second consultation officer report, and this is for the draft budget 2026 to 27 and draft review and rating plan 26 to 29 submissions. And our first speaker tonight is former councillor Natalie Duffy.
Thank you very much. Hello, councillors. Thank you for receiving community feedback and for listening to me tonight. It's lovely to be here, and I would like to say, as an active community volunteer and advocate, I'm involved in many community groups. I'm on the committee for the Eltham Junior Football Club, the Olympic Reconciliation Group and youth charity Imagine Re-Evolution. I'm not speaking for any groups today. I'm speaking here as myself in a personal capacity as a resident of Nillumbik and someone who lives in Eltham North. I did put in a submission. It's just a couple of points. I don't want to go into a lot of detail with the budget. There are other people who will probably do that with a fine-tooth comb. I know the workings behind the budget, but I'm just wanting to point out a couple of things that I'm hoping that there is room for within the budget lines that have not been mentioned at a high level. So the first one is at Susan Street, Eltham Junior Panthers Football Club play there, and also the Eltham Cricket Club. There's minimal seating. There's probably 4 bench seats, and it's really insufficient in comparison to other local football fields. Yarrambat, for example, they've got 41 bench seats. So it would be really great if in the budget line for infrastructure at sporting facilities, there can be the provision of extra seats to help those that watch and those who work for the community at those places. A second point is landscaping at the Eltham North Reserve car park. It's wonderful that council was able to do the car parking upgrade last year, and the landscaping, I know that you're waiting to have the prime season to do that, but now's a great time, and I'm just wanting to make sure that there's money sufficiently in the budget to replace the trees. My count was 49 trees, and also to do the vegetation work in that area as well. One of the things that did happen was just before the car park was built last year, council had actually provided a whole lot of landscaping of small Indigenous plants in the area. Unfortunately, they were all just bulldozed down when the car park redesign took place. This is an opportunity where there are community groups like the Friends of Edendale Farm that I'm part of could come and dig out those plants and replant them elsewhere, rather than just expediently getting the contractors to go through and do the works. There's lots of people who really love our environment, and that brings me to the next point. Roundabouts and beautification. I'm hoping that within the road budgets and in the right place, there might be some money to help beautify our local roundabouts. It's been about 10 years, and there are a number of roundabouts. I've put that in my submission. I'm hoping that you might be able to do something with those, just from a wellbeing point of view, so that we can feel good when we're driving around. And lastly, most importantly, is Barrack Bushlands. There was a 21st anniversary celebration there last year. Councillor Cope, I think you attended, which was great, and Councillor Jamerick. So thank you. One of the things that happened that was quite significant at that tree planting event...
When you can.
I would just finish on this point. There were 4 significant trees planted. There were 500 plants, but 4 trees were planted by Wurundjeri women. Mandy Nicholson, Kira Hunter and Stacey Piper all planted a tree, one for the Niven family, one for the Wandon family, one for the Terrick family and one for William Barrack. So it would be great if council could find money in budgets or work with community to help us with grants to put some signage up for that.
Thank you for making your point. Thank you, Natalie. Thank you. And any questions for Natalie? I have a question. Derek, have you got a plan for the planting for Eltham North? Just so we can clarify that for you.
Yeah, thank you for your question. So the Eltham North car park reserve, so there is a planting plan established, and once the season is established now, once a contractor comes available, they'll be planting out there very shortly.
That's great news. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Just put your microphone on, sorry.
Sorry. Natalie, one of the roundabouts that you were mentioning, would that one of them be included the Kangaroo Ground, Wongat Road one.
Yeah, because there's only 3 minutes, I didn't want to go through them all. But yeah, Kangaroo Ground, there's a roundabout there. Ryan's Road, Kerry Crescent, that roundabout is looking very neglected. It has one plant in the middle that I actually did a guerrilla planting probably 4 years ago. There are a number of roundabouts. Research, for example, I suppose it's just a way of us being able to feel good when we move around the Shire, for economic development as well, for people to stick and when they're coming to visit, maybe feel more enticed to buy something when they're here. But for me, I feel, as I drive around, a sense of disappointment sometimes, because it does look like they're neglected and it doesn't take very much, and particularly when we're so close to Banyule, who are doing a really big job at the moment, a great job in planting out roadside reserves and their roundabouts. So for those of us that are on the border between Nillumbik and Banyule, it is very much like chalk and cheese. But I know that the budget has to be decided on with how you allocate money. But yeah, Kangaroo Ground out there is one of the ones that I would like to see get a little bit of love as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Natalie.
Thank you. Councillor Perkins.
Thanks for your presentation, Natalie. I was just wondering, have you identified any roundabouts in Diamond Creek?
Yeah, there are some in Diamond Creek as well. Yes. So up in, this sounds like all I do is drive around looking at roundabouts, but one of the roundabouts in particular is on David Hockney Drive. There was a beautiful roundabout in this local street.
Maybe more specifically Ellis Ward, Diamond Creek.
Oh, Ellis Ward. Would council be accommodating if I was to provide a list of the roundabouts to you?
I think that would be most efficient. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to get you off roundabouts, Natalie, I was wondering whether you had any thoughts on the bridge coming into Eltham that does have a lot of plants growing in it, but I'm not sure we necessarily want them there.
Are you
on the main road bridge?
On Main Road.
We've got a lot of wattle trees, etc., growing on them.
Point of order.
Thank you.
I don't think that's relevant to the submission.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, councillors.
Thank you. Now, next speaker will be Don Vincent, President of the Friends of Nillumbik.
Thank you. I'm speaking on behalf of Friends of Nillumbik to support our written submission. We support and welcome some improvements in the budget and its documentation, including the general rate and domestic waste charge increases, which are essential to maintain services delivered under inflationary pressures. The new differential rating categories for sustainable agriculture and trust for nature properties. The improved categorisation of service area expenditure for the 4 themes, along with details of the new operating initiatives and specific funding for the biodiversity and urban tree canopy strategies. They're the good things. Conversely, explanation of the budget basis for the budget is weak. There's 4 pages explaining the budget framework and processes, but only 2 dot points mention the actual budget basis and assumptions. While it's clear the budget is and should be aligned to the council plan priorities, there's no discussion to better justify the rate increases apart from cost pressures, and the budget blandly, or I might say blindly, projects costs and constant staffing as if there's nothing to see here at all. There are significant and known challenges and risks to the budget, including Council's current organisation restructure and its potential cost savings or service impacts. There's other cost efficiencies to be made as well, apparently. The extra costs of renegotiating service and supply contracts, changes to the Kangaroo Ground landfill project timeframe and costs. And there's no mention of the Challenger Street BMX Jumps Park, for which carryover funding will be needed. And last but not least, the potential effects of state government housing targets and planning changes. None of those are covered. In particular, the restructure is of keen interest to the Nillumbik community because of its potential impact on services. We note that the budget is planned for re-exhibition from tomorrow. We ask directly if the re-exhibited budget will come clean and explain to the community that funds this council what the real costs and uncertainties are and how the council intends to maintain or cut services to meet cost constraints. Next, regarding capital investment, the draft budget introduction refers to careful prioritisation of expenditure. In the last year, council took up opportunistic projects supported by state grants, the Hurstbridge Dog Park and the Challenger Street BMX Park, committing council to unbudgeted capital expenditure and unestimated annual operating costs, meaning that other planned priorities cannot be funded. We think that opportunistic projects should be considered in the context of council plan priorities with the same cost-benefit scrutiny and estimated budgetary implications as any other investment by council. Finally, regarding service performance indicator outcomes, there are still none for environment, biodiversity and climate action, and we again request council to include the most appropriate indicators from the council plan to reflect actions and commitments to these strategies. Thank you for hearing our submission.
Thank you, Don. Does anyone have any questions for Don? No, I might ask Beland, sorry. Can you explain why the BMX funding is not outlined in this budget? Can you explain why there's no line item for the BMX funding in these budget papers?
The funding is coming from the carry forwards from this year's budget, and it will appear, although it's not going to be in the budget because no funding allocated from next year's budget. However, we are carrying forward funds from this year's budget, and you will see the allocated funding in the first quarterly report.
Thank you very much. Any other questions for Don? No? Thank you very much, Don. Thank you. Next is Wayne Kinraid on behalf of Friends of the Eltham Copper Butterfly.
So good evening, councillors. I'd like to acknowledge the positive changes to this year's draft budget structure, in particular the clearer presentation of environmental services, the consolidated list of new operating initiatives, the first attempt to broaden performance indicators beyond the mandatory specifications by the state, and the improved trust for nature rate structure for relevant properties. These are constructive advances. I also support the issues raised by my fellow community advocate, Don Vincent. Noteworthy areas of his concern regarding the lack of clear strategy statement underpinning the budget assumptions as a specific issue. But tonight my comments focus on one issue, a practical governance issue for councillors around the room. Currently, the budget structure makes it difficult for councillors and the community to see the relationship between budget dollars, staffing resources and council activities, and that was just illustrated by the question around the BMX track. What I'm proposing is not about creating more data. It's about making existing information easier to understand. For example, if council changes its strategy emphasis on age-related services or community development, it should be easy for all to see where resources are increasing or decreasing and how staffing is impacted. Currently, staffing information is presented at a highly aggregated directorate level, while service area reporting mainly represents net cost figures, not underlying expenditure composition, such as the balance between staffing, contracts, overheads. The changes I'm suggesting are about clearer linkage between inputs, activities and strategic priorities. Existing documents, the budget, the annual plan and the annual report, and generally the quarterly reports, do not join those dots. Clearer explanatory notes using existing information would be beneficial for ratepayer communication. Reflecting on feedback around my suggestions, I suggest any refinement process must remain practical, flexible and incremental. One possible approach supporting refinement would be a short-term working group, potentially linked to the Audit and Risk Committee. Participants could be the CFO, one or two community members and one councillor. That group could identify practical quick wins for the final 26-27 budget and develop a stage plan for future document refinement. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you, Wayne. Does anybody have a question for Wayne? Thank you. Councillor Joy.
Thanks, Wayne. Appreciate your input. Just to help us better understand what it is that you're proposing, you said at the beginning, so I didn't quite capture it all in my notes, but something broadly about alignment between the budget and staffing and programs.
Yes.
Not to put you on the spot too much with it, but do you have an example that you could kind of spell out for us to help us understand exactly what it is you're proposing?
Absolutely. So I'm not sure if it got delivered to councillors, but in my submission, it included a detailed spreadsheet where I showed you can allocate all the individual 200 plus general leisure lines to a service area. And for instance, in the area that I'm most interested in at a personal level, the environment, there's about 4 line items in the general ledger that feed into the service area. You cannot identify the service activity that's related to each of those areas. And for most cases, that applies to the 200 other general ledger items. Now, I would be very happy to see an incremental improvement just listing some of those general ledger items so you've got a better understanding of where the allocation of inputs, dollars, and staff FTE relate to the activity. And that could be in the notes to the accounts, not actually changing your fundamental structure. And I acknowledge there's a lot of work to do, but it need not be all that much because all the data's there. I can see it from the general ledger lines in the spreadsheet that was provided to Don. So it's a matter of recutting and linking it to existing data that you have and identifying where there's gaps. Don't want to turn that into a witch hunt. It's more about saying how can this gradually improve over time. So that for those 4 lines in the environmental area, you'd actually identify the actual budget component at the general ledger level in a worksheet that's available to people that are interested and the activity that applies to that general ledger line. So that's where I'm saying it's about input, activity and relationships to strategic activity. That way you can also create the link to the council plan and the annual action plan and the quarterly report. If you go to the quarterly report, it's just full of all these impact indicators that have no relationship to the inputs and the FTE of the staffing. So if you change allocation to, say, the BMX track, what's the implication of that for staffing? Where does it appear in the service areas? What happens to the FTE? Does the contractor spend come up? You don't necessarily want to be publishing that in the budget, but you want to have the backup material available to councillors and interested ratepayers so that they can see what's happening in a transparent way. The data is there.
Any other questions from councillors for Wayne? No? Thank you very much, Wayne. Our last speaker was going to be joining us online, Andrew Jones, but he has not popped on. So we'll have to move on there. So would anyone like to move the recommendation?
I'm happy to move the recommendation. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Joyner. And as per the papers, was that?
As per the papers, thanks.
Thank you. And a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Cope. Councillor Joyner, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you. Just look, we received a total of 23 submissions across both the draft budget 2026-2027 and draft revenue and rating plan 2026-2029. I'd like to acknowledge and thank each community member who has taken the time to provide feedback and provide submissions or come in and present to us tonight. Thank you. Community input is a vital part of our decision-making process. I'd also like to highlight that we have updated the budget and made some changes to it, so it will in fact be going out for a further 3-week exhibition period starting tomorrow. This provides additional opportunity for community input and ensures transparency. Listening to our community and ensuring our budget reflects both strategic priorities and community expectations is important to us. So I'm happy to move the motion as per the papers. Thanks.
Councillor Cope, would you like to speak? No. Any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Brooker.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chair, I should say. Look, I think it's somewhat ironic we're dealing with the budget tonight. I think there may be some attention a little further north from us about budgets, but I'm sure, you know, who advised Jim Chalmers to coincide his budget address with the night that we do it, they really need to have a look at their scheduling. I do think, as Don Vincent has identified as an astute budget watcher, dot point 4 resolves to re-exhibit the draft budget 26-27 for a further 3-week consultation period. And the question is, why are we doing that? And the answer is there's been, I think, some material changes that we want to inform the public about. And they are around borrowings, and they are specifically, and it was mentioned this evening, the Kangaroo Ground landfill. We are putting out in this re-exhibiting the budget a borrowing of $2 million for the Kangaroo Ground landfill project. This long municipal nightmare continues of capping the landfill. I think the good news is this is bringing forward some money that was allocated in 27-28 to this year because of some contractor issues, and that work has progressed, I think, quicker than what was anticipated. So we have to bring forward the spend, or otherwise there would be some penalties in paying our contractors for that work. And I just, I've spoken about this previously. This, goes back to the Cranbourne incident in the early 2010s, I think, of leaking methane, which changed the EPA standards for capping landfills, which we have to go through this audited, expensive process. We've found asbestos in soil that has had to be redone. It has been a difficult process for the council, and that continues. We also, I guess, as a broad response to, I would call, geopolitical concerns, there's going to be a provision in this new information that's going to be exhibited for a provision for borrowings of up to $3 million. A provision for borrowings are not borrowings, and a decision to utilise that provision would come to a decision of the council. And at that council, and there would be a whole process around, I guess, alternatives rather than using that lever in terms of meeting our council plan objectives. So that's something to see in the revised budget. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brooker. Anyone else wish to speak? No, thank you. We will now put that to a vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimously. So we have no supplementary or urgent business tonight. We have no confidential reports. So we will now close the meeting. Thank you, everyone. This concludes our meeting for the night. I declare the meeting closed at 7:32 p.m.